fancy that. Here we are. Marvellous.
Oh, let's get some water in.
Here we are.
Thank you guys for coming so far. Another round of applause for these guys, man.
I didn't come very far. I live in LA, so it's not very far at all. It's about an hour. So these guys came from
Just a brisk
some
walk
other
for you.
country, but I live here now, so you know.
You guys, this is a rare panel, but let's just really quick, briefly start with breaking news stories, how you got into the industry, just so people know. If you can start from there and come on to that.
Right, okay, how did I get into it? Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Get close to the mic. Close. Get
Okay,
closer.
so I was working in a music shop when I was a mere teenager, and two gentlemen called Tim and Chris came in, and they wanted me to demonstrate some keyboards to them and a drum machine. So I did. They bought the equipment and they offered me a job, and that happened to be Tim and Chris Stamper from Rare Limited. So that's how I got my break into the industry.
Kev.
Me? Well, I was still very young when I started. I think I just turned 16. And I was always drawing little pictures on my computer and sending them off to different companies to see if I could get a job in the industry. But I had no idea that this company called Rare was around the corner. And my parents dropped me off on a visit to my grandparents one evening and left me there. And Tim just showed me all of his artwork and said, "Do you think you can do this?" And I said, "Yes," even though I didn't think I could do it. And the next thing I was doing was working there before Christmas, and I was there for about 18 years. So.
I guess so. At me, I was a total loser. I was left university at 22, and I spent the next 11 years playing in rock bands, stuff getting nowhere. And my mate called Robin Beanland, who he said he played in local bands. Like I kind of played in local bands on unemployment insurance for like at least 11 years. And he said, "I've got a job at this company called Rare. You've been on unemployment benefit for about 11 years. Don't you think you should get a job?" And I was like, "Well, what can I do?" He said, "Well, why don't you try do what I do, write music for video games?" I said, "Oh, well, I'll have a go." So he recommended some gear, I bought a copy of Keybase and a crappy computer and started writing music that I thought was appropriate for video games. And I sent 5 cassette tapes to Rare over the course of 1994 and never got a reply. And out the blue I got a reply saying, "Please come for an interview." And Dave interviewed me and stupidly enough gave me the job. And that's how I got in. Fluke.
So I was at university studying biochemistry and also then doing a PhD in biochemistry. So I have a doctorate in molecular biology biochemistry. And we used to model protein molecules on 3D computers, which were quite unusual at the time because there wasn't 3D graphics on desktop. So we had these really fancy machines made by various companies, including Silicon Graphics. So I used to look after Silicon Graphics machines. And then I was looking through Edge magazine, which is a kind of like glossy UK games magazine one day, and in the double-page spread of adverts for dream jobs at Rare, they had artist and programmer and then Silicon Graphics system manager. So I applied for the job thinking I wouldn't get it. I got it. So I went there to look after Silicon Graphics, and they had those because those are the machines that Kev used for doing the Diddy Kong modeling and stuff, and then also the Nintendo 64 was made by Silicon Graphics. So I went there as a computer guy, and then drifted onto the GoldenEye team, and that's how I got into the development part of it.
So really quickly, I'm going to pick like 3 people. What is your favorite Rare game? Raise your hand right there. Banjo-Kazooie.
Hooray!
I already know that. If it's Banjo-Kazooie, put it down. Right there.
Perfect Dark.
Ah!
Dark.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
What can I say?
Cap. Jet Force.
Oh, Jet Force. Oh, yes, very good, very good.
Right on. Right.
DK64.
Oh!
DK60. Oh, a couple hands went down there. GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
Just Donkey Kong Country.
Donkey
Oh,
Kong.
very good.
Here we go.
Classic.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh, very good.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh,
Okay.
controversial.
So now I would all the Rare projects. There's a lot of them that through the span of the years. What is there one that holds a special place in your hearts? Which one would that be for each of you?
For me, it would be the Donkey Kong Country. Because that made a big impact on my career, so that's probably the most rememberable one.
Yeah. I love it.
If I could say rememberable.
You got it.
Memorable.
Memorable.
I like the way you
Memorable.
say it, that way-
Rememberable.
It's our English accents.
It is.
That's what it
Must
is.
be.
For me, I would say it's got to be 2 because I can't really determine which I preferred working on. And Killer Instinct because of that whole change in the 2D to 3D. And also we experimented with motion capture, and it was just such a massive part of myself in our games. Like drew the characters, made silly voices, and jumped into a sweaty suit to get all the moves together. But for the one that I remember the most so fondly would be Diddy Kong Racing, because it was just such a great atmosphere on the team when we were creating that game.
For me, I guess it'd be 2 again. So, I mean, I just got there. My first game was GoldenEye, right apart from doing the Game Boy for Dave. And then, so that was amazing to get to do that game. And I did kind of half the music along with Graham Norgate. But I guess also Banjo-Kazooie, because that's the first game that I did all the music and all the sound effects. So it was completely, that was all my sound, right? So I guess that would be my 2 favourites.
And for me, GoldenEye, I mean, it changed my life. I mean, I went from doing one thing to doing a completely different thing, met some amazing people. I mean, the GoldenEye team, I'm still in touch with all of them.
Especially me, right?
Yeah, especially you. But, that game, I mean, it was a very unusual game for Rare. I mean, it was just not a Rare game. They didn't make shooters, and almost all of the team hadn't really made games before. So we were kind of making up as we went along, and it just all worked out. And then when it was released, we kind of thought, well, you know, we've managed to get it done, and it's out there, so hopefully it will not be a disappointment. And it's just, you know, over the years, it's just become a legendary game. So absolute privilege to have worked on it. And you know, and things like this, you know, going as you get older, it's just amazing. Well, for me, as I get older, it's just amazing to see how many people it touched around the world, and just to kind of share those memories with them. So it was very, very special.
Also created your alter ego. So.
And also,
that's right.
Well, also I cheekily, obviously, put all of our faces were in the game, because that was the thing that we were doing with the early face mapping. And I was in there as Dr. because I'd been a scientist, because I was a scientist. I am Dr. Doak, I have a PhD in biochemistry. So that was it was like a silly joke, and we kept it in the game, and it's just become a wonderful thing, because I just get people come up to me all over the world and say, sorry, we shot you.
So those who worked on Donkey Kong Country, I want to start there. I mean, that game sold 9.3 million copies. When did you know you were creating something special, like that was going to change the landscape of gaming, literally?
I think Tim brought in some brochures which were just sort of promoting this software, which was the 3D software that we were using to create all of the graphics in the movies, sort of Terminator 2 and lots of fancy advertisements that you'd see with all these special super graphics moving around. And I didn't really know how we were going to fit that in on a Super Nintendo, what we were going to do with that. But we got this machine, and I started experimenting with the tools to see if I could make something, and the first thing I wanted to make was a fighting game. So I started putting together some graphics, and that sort of took us to a place where Tim invested a little bit more in it, and he bought another machine and started to go upstairs to build a background for these characters I was doing, because it was just a new, almost like a learning exercise. But then when Nintendo approached us and they saw what we'd done with regards to some kind of demo with the Killer Instinct characters that were brute force back then, they asked us to take the Donkey Kong character. And we already knew that it looked sort of groundbreaking, but it was still in its infancy, really. We hadn't worked out how to get the best colours and the best visuals from everything, but we knew that whatever we were going to do with this, it was going to look like nothing else. We'd seen plenty of really well-animated and well-drawn sprites moving around for a long time, but we'd never seen anything that was realistic shadowing and realistic reflections, and so when you put it there, that character looked solid and it looked like you could pick it up, and it didn't really matter. We were obviously going to write a good game, but we knew that it would sell itself just by the way it looked anyway, so it was very exciting from the beginning.
Which, when you guys showed it to, and the first time at that show, I forget which show it was, all those retailers bought it up. Like, you were already a success before it even came out.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was pretty amazing.
I think it foxed a lot of people. I think they thought it was actually on a step up with the hardware. I think that we'd done something to it, but it was just, I would never have believed it myself that you could get that kind of definition out of 15 colours and such a small resolution, but it worked.
I remember seeing it for the first time, and my mind was blown. It was just like, how did they do this? How did they achieve this? It was just something awesome, man. So, did anyone else want input on that?
No, what Kev said is the same. So we've gone from 2D sprites, and all of a sudden you got these characters that you could almost pick out of the screen. If you go back to when we made it, it was a huge step up. So yeah, very exciting. And because we knew we got something cool to work on, and it would have, it would have made people sit up and want to buy it.
But we were very lucky to have that backing from Nintendo when
exactly.
it supplied us with the additional machines. Otherwise, it would have taken a very long time to make that game.
You guys had actually, you had reverse engineered the Famicom, which kind of impressed them, from what I understand.
Originally, yeah. So Chris Stamper, who was the one of the directors, he'd done that, and he'd managed to do that, and that's how we got the deal with Nintendo in the first place.
Like back in the 80s system.
Completely.
And I'm sorry, guys, I'm nerding out. Like, I'm so happy to be here right now. Like, this is like, oh my gosh. And I'm asking my nerdy questions. I promise I'll let you guys, I just got to get some stuff, and we can we'll go longer on the panel, okay?
Yeah.
So, David, Iron Sword, Wizard and Warriors 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of awesome scores, actually. Is it Snake, Rattle, and Roll? Some 8-bit classics, right? I want to know about Nightmare on Elm Street. For the NES, I absolutely love that score. What was your inspiration? How did you work that? Because it's so awesome, and a lot of people crap on that great game, but y'all don't understand. The freaking music's amazing in that. And I know people talk about Battletoads and everything, but like, Nightmare on Elm Street.
So Nightmare on Elm Street. I can't remember who wrote the film. I think it might have been Danny Elfman.
I can't remember. Yeah,
Not quite sure.
The
I can't remember.
Craven film, wasn't it? What you mean a score?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure who wrote it. Anyway, they came in with these scores, and I was listening to them. I thought there's no way that those scores are going to translate onto an 8-bit system. So we took the theme. I think we used it once, and the rest of it was just me being given a machine to play with, and that's what the score was. So
it's so good.
And also the fact that a lot of the games we normally do are quite happy, and then here we are with Nightmare on Elm Street. It was such a departure from what I normally do. So I just rolled with it and enjoyed making the game.
Then real quick, how did the Pause Battletoads thing come in?
The Pause Battletoads is actually, I mean, it's my data, because everything was typed out in those days, and Mark had just taken, I wasn't there whilst it was being created, he just took some of my data and made this Pause tune, and that's where that came from, so I can't really take much responsibility for it. It was actually the main programmer, Mark Betteridge, who put it together.
Okay,
Wow.
gotcha. Kevin, I'm a big Killer Instinct fan, and if you're ever in Albuquerque, would you come and sign my Killer Instinct machine that I have?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've signed a couple of machines. Actually. I'm actually looking forward to meeting the Mortal Kombat guys. They're here, aren't they? So we can do a bit of sparring maybe. But yeah, I used to be able to get my leg up a lot higher.
In real life.
In 1990s, I'm working on it, but it was just, I was such a martial arts enthusiast, and my friend he's actually visiting here today. He got me into the karate, and then he started working at Microsoft. He actually lives over in Seattle now, and he's coming over to this convention. It's really crazy how it sort of worked out, but we were such big fans of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan that I just really wanted to do a fighting game after playing Double Dragon in the arcades and Way the Exploding Fist on my Commodore 64. I was just a complete fighting game nerd, and it was literally a dream come true, especially when Maya, the software that we use, Power Animator, it became Maya, and they added some different effects like the particles for the hair, and with the KI2 game was adding a lot more definition, and I was just so looking forward. I can remember I could not wait to get to work to see what my render had turned out like overnight, to see whether the hair had moved. And then I'd get home and I'd come into work the next day and I'd find out that I'd had the camera pointing at the ankle of the character for the whole evening, and it had rendered up just an ankle doing this. So,
oh no!
But it was, you never really knew what you were going to get, and you could play with the lights and stuff to make something feel very different, but it always looked really solid, and so you just couldn't wait to see these characters sort of come to life.
And so, making a sequel to any kind of a blockbuster hit, whether it's a movie or a video game, what was it like were there any things you wanted to achieve with KI Gold that you just weren't able to pull off?
Well, I didn't work on KI Gold because that's when I started working on Diddy Kong Racing, but when I worked on KI2, I would have liked.
I guess that's
that,
what I mean.
Yeah,
I said KI Gold because
I'd like to have had some kind of exploration element and sort of encounter different fighters as you went along. But I think Chris Tilston looked at the design and they sort of added more levels to that and made it a little bit more dynamic. But for myself, it was just about making it look prettier. And a lot of people actually prefer the look of the first game. Mm-hmm. I still prefer the colour and that of the second one, but I do think the first game had something that the second one didn't have.
Yeah, the colors are more saturated.
Yeah.
The second one,
Yeah.
the first one, I do agree with that school
Yeah.
of thought. That the first one that was awesome. Now, here's a question I wanted to know all my life. Why did we never get a port of KI1 on the N64, even if it was later? I know they brought it to the SNES, but why didn't we get that?
I couldn't really answer because I was too wrapped up on Diddy Kong Racing, and then I think went on to Star Fox Adventures immediately from that. But I mean, we gave them the game on the Super Nintendo, as I guess we figured it would already be in most people's homes anyway.
Right.
And so KI Gold was kind of a sort of a compromise, I reckon, to get that next game actually onto the system. It was still very much the same game, and it was everything that Killer Instinct had, but with some more features. And so we had to deliver a game, and it came out as KI Gold. But yeah, I'd moved into the more 3D environment then, and started moving with polygons, which was another learning curve. So I was so focused on this whole new 3D universe that you were going to move in, rather than these planes with 2D characters on. It was quite a lot to get your head around.
It was the only reason why I bought a 64 at the time, hoping it would come, because they promoted it so much in the arcades.
But
so.
you still have a Super Nintendo, I'm sure.
I do, yes. And I have that copy
Yeah.
of the KI too. So, Grant, Banjo-Kazooie.
Yes.
Such a unique score, right?
Well, I don't know, is it? Hopefully it is.
What inspirations did you draw from to come up with some of that stuff?
It was Dream before that, right? And that was kind of an RPG Zelda type thing. So I just remember Tim deciding to change it to a platformer, and I'd written 107 pieces of music for Dream, and just throwing those all out the window. He just said, you need to write jolly platform music now, and I was really new around, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just kind of wrote the tune to Click Clock Woods, just as a demo to say, I think that's a jolly platform piece. But I think as the game went along, I realised that we were trying to beat Mario, right? But I knew that I couldn't write music like Koji Kondo. That kind of Nintendo did that really great poppy jazz style really well, and I'm crap at that. So I knew there was no point in me doing it. So I just thought I needed to write something that was different to that. So. I kind of stumbled upon that umpire thing, I was watching Beetlejuice, the Danny Elfman score for that, and it's got that real umpire going all the way through it. And I realised that, particularly when I got to Bad Monster Mansion, I realised I could have dark harmonies that were quite dark, but if you did an umpire jolly rhythm, didn't scare the kids, right? So it was like that kind of, it's got these really dark harmonies, but it's got umpa, so it makes it kind of jolly rhythmically, but quite dark. So I kind of got that thing, and I went back and rewrote the earlier levels of the game. So I rewrote Mumbo's Mountain, and I rewrote Treasure Trove Cove to be a bit more like that. So, and I thought to myself, there's this thing in music called the tritone. So you got a C and a C, it's an octave, right? And then the middle point between the two notes, which is the furthest point away, it used to be called the devil's interval. It's the tritone. So it's an F sharp, or I guess you call it a G flat, probably, but it's more like an F sharp, really. But so I figured, well, that's because the characters are so opposite. Like Banjo is a dumb bear, and Kazooie's quite a clever, wisecracking thing. I thought that in the music that would represent the opposite personalities. So I got the tritone. So I just umpired the tritone. I went, ooh, that sounds quite wacky. So it just ended up being that kind of quirky thing, and it kind of bled into the whole game, And so, it's one of those things that you just do it by fluke, right? You don't really know what you're going to do, and you think people are going to forget about it in 6 weeks or 6 months. And, the fact that people still talk about it, any of our stuff, like 28, whatever it is, years later, is ridiculous. So, I just think a lot of the time the stuff that I do is just complete fluke. I'm not really very good at all. So it's just like accidents that happen and just seems to sound all right. It's like, oh, that's all right, let's just use that. So there's not a lot of thought in it, really.
I have more questions, but I'm gonna let them probably do
right.
that. But let's talk some GoldenEye. Listen, I have a love-hate relationship with you at this moment. Let me just tell you. So, I'm living, like most college people, living with a bunch of roommates, and they start playing GoldenEye. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I like this. At that time, there wasn't really first-person shooters for PC, yes, but for consoles, they're few and far between. And I'm like, oh, this is cool, and because that's what happens when you die. And it was just I think because it was a bit of a sleeper hit, and 3 months later, that's all I heard for the next 2 years of my life. Does anyone remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But the game is fascinating. When did you know that this is huge? When did that?
I don't think we did. We didn't. No.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of a back burner rare title that was just being worked on, correct?
It was out a few years after we got the script.
It's interesting. Ken Lobb, who was kind of he almost like a member of Rare, but he was Nintendo. So he was involved in Killer and in GoldenEye. Ken did a really inspired thing. So the multiplayer obviously was the thing that just ruined grade point averages across across the country. But we really wanted to do it to have multiplayer, because we used to play a lot of kind of multiplayer Doom on the network and stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
So we knew, you know, at that time FPS multiplayer gaming wasn't really a thing at a fairly niche. You know, you needed to get a LAN party. You needed everyone to come along and bring their monitor and their computer and all this kind of stuff. So it was just, yeah.
We did it. But
So it was always in our heads that we would do that. But the game, all through the development, on the technical side, we were always struggling with performance, because the N64, as it turned out, wasn't quite to the spec that SG had forecast when they were initially speccing it out. So we had a whole bunch of working kind of ceilings for complexity and stuff. And we were right up against them, and then when the final hardware was announced, that was like, well, okay, well, this is becoming hard now to give up performance. And for instance, just rendering characters, you know, if you're a single viewport, you've got Bond's hand, and then whatever NPCs you're fighting against, so there might be like 6 on screen at once. The problem is when you go to multiplayer, if you've got 4 split, then each one of those windows can be rendering 3 other people if you're all in the same room. So suddenly that threshold has doubled, plus the background rendering and stuff. So it was kind of like, maybe we'd love to get it working, maybe we can get it working. And then particularly Steve Ellis was one of the main programmers in GoldenEye, and he was kind of almost locked in a room for a couple of months to only do that. We got it working. I have such a vivid memory of the day, because we'd always said to Ken, you know, it's something we'd like to do. It's like, oh, you guys, you're never going to do that. It's never going to happen. And I remember him coming into the office on one of his kind of occasional visits to Rare, so he could come over to see how things were. And we had a dev kit set up with 4 controllers connected, and he's just going, no, you guys, no. And he just sat down. And then Ken was just a massive champion for it at Nintendo. So when, you know, him and the guys at Nintendo America, they knew that if we were delivering that 4-player split screen, that it would just go gangsters and people would love it. And one of the things he did was he made sure that GoldenEye went into brick and mortar rental. Yeah, so it was all Blockbusters and stuff had it. And the idea there was, if people take this home and they rent it, they will buy a copy, because the experience that you had. And that was kind of the sleeper hit, because when it came out, it didn't do big numbers initially, but just the rental numbers were always high, and then they just kept on redoing the cartridge because it was just, you know, it was the game, it was a keeper, you know, the single player game, you know, I'm very proud of the work I did on that, but I think, you know, it wouldn't have gone the distance that it did without multiplayer.
Yeah.
And also, it sold more in the second year than the first year, and it sold more in the third year than the first 2 years put together. So normally games go like that and then die off. GoldenEye just kept going up and up and up and up. It was really weird how it worked like that.
And it's kind of an interesting time in gaming where movie licensed titles, a lot of gamers just shied away from them because they weren't that great. And then to top it off, I mean, GoldenEye had already been out for a while, and then you guys released this game about the movie, and you're like, oh, what is this about? So,
and it was so late and it was so full of bugs. We just thought, just release it. Who cares anymore? It's just, you know.
I mean, I think one of the things about the GoldenEye, or the Bond property as a license, was that everyone on the team really loved James Bond. You know, because we'd grown up, you know. I mean, for me, James Bond, I mean, that was the thing we used to always joke about. So, you know, for me, James Bond was Sean Connery, and then for some other people on the team, James Bond was Roger Moore. You know, again, at one point we did have those characters in, but they had to be taken out. And also the breadth of the license, because it was GoldenEye the movie, but we were allowed to put all of the other NPCs in, so like Odd Job and all that stuff. And that was really unusual. It was just somehow that was, you can do whatever you want. So, okay, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff we'll be doing there. And then, like, you know, for the bonus levels, like the Aztec level, the Egyptian level, all that kind of stuff. So, and it kind of redefined what a movie license would be in a game.
It defined a lot of things. I mean, like, headshots, I don't think were a thing before that. Am I correct, or is that like where it
I think, I mean, the thing with GoldenEye, I mean, you can, if you look back on it, there are just so many parts of the game which were unusual or incredibly innovative. And I think that also came down to the team, because again, because we weren't constrained by having made games like that before, or having made games before, so we just had a wish list of things. So like the animation, you know, motion captured animation in for NPCs in a game, and then location-based hits, as you say, the headshots, then the objectives, all this kind of stuff. It was just stuff that we just kind of, we would think of, and then we would work on it and put it in. And yeah, I mean, it became a kind of, it's almost, if you look at GoldenEye, it's almost like a shopping list for all the things that you expect to have in a modern FPS.
Right.
So.
Fascinating. Okay, I got a million questions, but I can't keep going. I got to turn it over to you guys. Come with the goods, guys. Who's got the first question right there?
I have a question. So for Grant specifically, why were you guys so mean to Lanky in the DK rap?
Well, I didn't write the lyrics right, so I'm blameless for that. That's George Andreas.
He has no style. He has no grace. This Kong has a funny face.
So that little thing that guy did about Lanky's watching the little cartoon thing, that's fantastic. I really love that. That's really great. So yeah, I'm blameless for that, I'm afraid. I can't be held responsible.
Thank you.
Right.
Right there in the hat.
Hey, question for most of you guys really who worked with Nintendo specifically, where did Nintendo give you guys any restrictions that you were like wanted to do this, but Nintendo said no? But at the same time, you guys were allowed a lot of liberty to change Donkey Kong in particular from what it was prior, Donkey Kong Jr. and all that, to Donkey Kong with the big tie and all that. So were there any restrictions from Nintendo, or was Nintendo pretty like, you guys are doing great, keep doing what you're doing?
I feel like that Tim and Chris were a buffer zone to Nintendo, and they just, anything that they complained about, they never told us. So if they complained, we didn't know. So they were a shield for us. I feel like, I mean, personally for me, the only thing I really got pulled up on was that plant pot in Mad Monster Mansion that said thank you. He said dang, because my voice went dang, and they all said F you. Yeah. And I had to I was like, do you really think I would put F you in a child's platform game? Are you crazy? And I had to do it like 20 times until they went, yeah, we're convinced it's not. I was going like, thank you, to try and really exaggerate it. I'm not saying F you. But that was my only real kind of contact with Nintendo, but I'm sure everybody else had more. Kev, I'm sure Dave had more than that.
I mean, I was going to say, I mean, GoldenEye, the one thing that happened late in kind of dev of GoldenEye was, obviously it had come to, you know, this Mr. Minato was looking at it and providing some feedback. And I think even, I mean, when you look back on GoldenEye now, you know, it's, at the time we were thinking it looks incredibly realistic, but obviously it's like that's always a thing with games. The technology is always going to make the rendering and the complexity more realistic as time goes on. But the motion capture in particularly does look like people getting hurt. So you know, that has kind of stood its test. And obviously there's a lot of silly stuff, but it does look like people getting shot. And Mr. Miyamoto suggested that there might be some scene at the end of the game, I think Martin had a fax about it, where it showed that it was just a game. So that you would see all of the people who've been shot all just kind of like hanging out together and shaking hands and big hugs and stuff. I mean, kind of, in some ways it was a sweet idea, but it didn't get done because, I mean, I think we probably briefly considered it. We're kind of going, well, maybe we just keep it on the shelf for a bit, it'll go away because we've got lots of other things that we need to be doing. So we're really stressed for time. But, you know, and Howard Lincoln, I remember actually we went to, we were over here in the States for E3.
I remember that.
And so Howard Lincoln, who was the president of NOA at the time, and famously a very kind of stern chap. He had been the lawyer who'd helped Nintendo when they were doing Donkey Kong, and they had a legal battle with Universal for the Kong and stuff and things, and Howard Lincoln was the brains behind them coming through that safe. But he famously had no interest whatsoever in video games. You know, he wasn't a video game player, but he liked GoldenEye. So that was another champion on there. You know, it was like, well, yeah, no, I used to. Yeah, I think he was in the military. I was some family in the military. He said, "What a shooting game!" So I've taken that and had a look at it. So.
Yeah, no, I remember our story about Howard Lincoln is that we were at E3 when Banjo was getting shown at E3, and we all said the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA, and. We were all told we're going to have a meeting with Nintendo, so it was down in the bowels of the hotel in this meeting room, and we all sat there, and in he walked, and he sat down and said, "My name's Howard Lincoln, I'm the president of the NOA, we have $5 billion in the bank and no debts." And that's how he started the conversation. And she said, just want to let you guys understand that, you know, with Banjo-Kazooie coming out this Christmas, we've committed X million to this advertising campaign, and 40 million, I just reeled off these figures involved. We all knew there was no chance Banjo was going to be out for Christmas. And all the colour just like drained from our faces just when we were shitting ourselves. And he just like did it in such a calm manner, but that real utter passive aggressive, if you guys mess us up, you are dead. You know, and we just kind of went, Howard, there's no problem, it's coming out for Christmas, absolutely no problem at all. Don't worry about it. And then we all went, Jesus Christ, there's no way we're getting out for Christmas. So Tim and Chris had to break it to him after they'd gone home and flown home, because we weren't going to face him again, that it wasn't going to make it. And that's when Diddy Kong Racing stepped in and took out all our budget, our advertising budget, got all the Donkey Kong characters in the game, made it a game and sold gazillions. And we were all like,
But they made that work too. They helped us with that. I mean, originally it was Timber's game. And they said, well, we're only going to put this money into marketing this if we've got a short character that people are going to know. We're not going to market some unknown tiger character. So the choice to put Diddy in there and change the title. Everything was done for a reason. The same was with Dinosaur Planet when it became Star Fox Adventures. It was it was just too many similarities with Star Fox. We'd got a wolf character running around on a planet, and he was going to have adventures in space, and so it just made sense for them to work with us. And they always did. And I found there were rumours that they didn't like the Donkey Kong character originally when I started building that, but I never saw any faxes that said they didn't like it. I think I just didn't put the tie on to begin with, and so they said, well, it's fine, can you put the tie on? And basically all I did was make a Battletoad, put Battletoad's eyes on a Donkey Kong, and then by the time I put the tie on, it looked like a completely different character. And possibly, I mean, I still prefer the original, because I think it's just because I'm looking at my own work and I see this face and it's just a Battletoad. But yeah, it's I think that they always work really well with us. And when we went to Kyoto and talked about how we can make the story and the design work for Dinosaur Planet, we spent a week there, and they would send people from Nintendo to Rare and to iCross, and we would just sort of heads together and work out how we can make the story work. And there was a list. I've got a set of faxes and things like that at home still. And I just looked at one of the faxes, and there's all these lists of things that I've never actually read. And I looked at them the other day, oh my God, they were gonna do this. And I was like, no, but I won't tell people what changes were going to be made to it, because they said, we suggested a lot of stuff, and then they said, no, there's too much bulk done in the game. We want the game out, and we want to be as non-destructive as we can with this. So they work really well with us on that. So
that's an answer for that question for sure. Oh my gosh, you guys want to pick one?
After the Banjo-Kazooie at the front here, look.
Are there any plans for Banjo-Kazooie? Anything like in the future? Like, are we getting a 3?
Well, honestly, I don't know. I'm not lying. I really don't know. I've been the last person at the tell, right?
Got ukulele.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I feel like hand on heart, I really honestly believe there will never be another Banjo-Kazooie game. I really believe that. Like, I know it's sad, but I just don't think Rare, they would never do it. They're too busy with Sea of Thieves and that Everwild thing that they're doing. They'd have to find another studio to do it like they did with...
Some other company.
Yeah, they'd have to find another company to do it. I mean, you know, but I just feel like, I don't think it'll ever happen. I feel like sometimes on my Twitter, I exist inside this kind of Banjo-Kazooie bubble. It's like lots and lots of people are going Banjo, 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 but in reality it's... How many people actually is it? Like, you know, I think when... I was sort of shocked when Banjo went into Super Smash Brothers and I got to do that tune, and I'm seeing all the fan reacting videos, everybody was crying. I thought that was unbelievable. And all those compilations you see on YouTube were really fantastic, and it's so heartwarming. So I don't know. I mean, you saw Phil Spencer mentioning it a couple of months ago, saying Banjo fans will hear you, so he hasn't told me about it. If he has got some next, so that's the honest truth, so I don't know. Yeah. If it, but, you know, I'm available. If he wants to, if he wants to do it, I'm up for it. Right, so.
Thank you.
Next question. The red.
This is actually a real question. What was the most hardest homework you ever basically ever done? Got through with it, but basically you did not want to finish it.
The hardest homework, did you say?
In the game?
What was the most homework? What was the most homework you ever took in class, and that you basically couldn't do it?
Homework, yeah.
Can't take it. Like you're about to give up, and not to get it all done.
I don't think I've ever had that. I don't think. I feel like we all got everything done in time most of the time. I don't think I ever felt so badly under pressure that I was going to fail. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like. What do you think?
We were work round the clock almost sometimes, but only because we really wanted that game to work anyway. There was no point putting out a bad game. And if you worked from 9 till 5 back then, you needed a lot of people to make things work. There weren't the tools that you've got today, and so you got a better quality game. And so we would have been there anyway. And quite often, someone would come up with an idea at a certain point and say, that's got to go in. And so we'd prolong the development by about 6 months, and it happened with GoldenEye, it happened with everything. But yeah, it's what we did because we loved doing it, and it was kind of like a huge, we always said it was like a massive family. And so it was a place to go at the weekends, carry on working, which of course they loved because it meant it was very productive. But I mean, we played quite hard as well occasionally, particularly when we got taken to America and Japan for a launch of a game. But we got plenty of hangovers there. But you know, we were proud of what we did, and we weren't going to let something go out that made us look bad. So,
no, but I think the difference is with us. I think at the time, no matter the Tim and Chris said to Nintendo, "We're not having it yet. It's not finished. It's not finished." And like I think these days, you get an awful lot of that corporate pressure to please the shareholders to get games out, to get those huge gigabyte downloads on day one because, you know, by the time the game was getting made, we couldn't have finished it. So I feel like we were very lucky, as we just said, we're not getting. And even though Nintendo were probably screaming at Tim and Chris, going, "Where's these games?" They're saying, "It's not done yet. You're not having it." So, and I think it was better for the games because it came out better. And also, you can't fix it when a cartridge goes out. You can't do a download and fix it. That's it, right? It's done. So I think that we were lucky that we got a big buffer zone. So if they were screaming at Tim and Chris and Joel, we never heard it.
Right on. Next question.
The video game industry has come a long way since the days of Rare's heydays. For the composers, I want to ask you, are there any small composers or teams that you've heard that you really respect what they've made? And then for the other gentlemen, have there been any games as of recent that you've seen that like you just have a lot of respect for? Can you highlight any?
Yeah, my biggest inspiration from the video games was probably a guy called Tim Follin, who worked for Software Creations. He was just an awesome. He was a really good composer, and he's very, very technical. So he wrote his own SDKs and things like that for the audio routine. And because he was doing the technical audio and he was also doing the composition, he got the most out of the system that he possibly could. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why we realised that if we did something similar for, say, Donkey Kong Country, where we were using our own software, that we could get far more out of the music because of it. So Tim Follin, he's probably my biggest video game composer hero.
I feel like I try not to listen to composers, other video game guys, really, if I can help it. Because I feel like I get influenced. I've had to put it out my own head. You know, it may be crap, but I'd rather put it out my own head. But, you know, I like a lot of the indie guys. I'm good friends with Danny Baranowski. I think he's great. You know, Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac. I know Jimmy Hinson really well. He's Big Giant Circles. He's great. Daniel, he does the Minecraft stuff. I know him well. I think he writes great stuff, you know. So, you know, I like Austin Wintry. He's a good friend. I like him as well. I live in LA now, so I've met a lot of the kind of LA people. And everyone's, you know, on the whole, super nice. But I probably listen to film scores more than I listen to video game scores because I don't want to get influenced by it. I just get influenced by film scores instead, so because it doesn't really matter. But you know, I just copy somebody else. So
can you drop a film score for me? I'm a movie director, so now.
Oh really? Oh my God. Well, I guess there's a gazillion now. But I guess anything by John Williams probably. Like John Williams.
Okay.
Like I feel like Harry Potter. Like when I was writing the Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning game. I just spent, that game took 4 years to make. I listened to the first 3 Harry Potter soundtracks because they're the first 3 that he did in the car every day for 4 years. And my wife just got so pissed off at me listening to Harry Potter. But I said, and I felt like it was my homework. I felt like I learned so much from listening to that stuff over and over and over again. Those first 3 scores that he wrote for those movies are just unbelievable. You know, very, very lucky living in LA. I get to go and see him at the Hollywood Bowl every year doing his big, his big movie score night. So I saw him last week. He was at the award show was at, and it's a little kind of thing. He gets up. He's 92 now. He just kind of dodders on and just speaks very eloquently and dodders off again. You know, so he's a superhero. So there'll never be another composer like him ever. That's right. It. Yeah.
It's difficult because I don't play that many video games at the moment, other than older video games, because I'm rubbish at video games now. But it's also hard because every game looks fantastic now. There's nothing out there that looks awful. And I think years ago you had to come up with some clever technique to squeeze the most out of a system, and that's not really the case anymore. It can do whatever you throw at it. But what does impress me is some of the, at Playtonic we're a publisher too, and some of the little teams that we work with, often a duo, the stuff that they produce, and yes, they've got better tools, but and they've also got plenty of other reference material to look at. But the effort that goes into some of these newer games that are not always a retro style game, sometimes they're a 3D world, but I'm just amazed by anything that can be created by just a very small team, because at Rare the team's got bigger and bigger, and at Playtonic now we've expanded too, but if you can get that right idea and it's just something really simplistic, I mean, it just always makes me just sit and look at it in awe. It's great, and it's just so simple. So
yeah, I mean, I like small team. I still play a lot of games. I probably don't play the kind of games that I'm known for making, because I really like small indie stuff that does something new, and just you come there going, how come nobody's done that before? And how can they not? I mean, good examples. So Return of the Obra Dinn, the kind of mystery game, and it's got, it's got this completely batshit idea, which is I'll make the rendering look like 1-bit Apple Mac rendering, but actually that just puts it in a completely different space in your head. I'm not a big platform game player, but when Celeste came out, I just couldn't put it down. It's just a wonderful, wonderful game design. Every level, it just has that. I think Magic Thorson the talk saying we wanted it to be every time you came onto that screen, and it's got that lovely thing where it's a screen often in the game, almost like an old arcade machine. You come onto it and you go, I can't do that, and then you go, but maybe if I do this, I could. And then you persevere and you do it, and that just beautifully reflects back on the kind of meta narrative of the game. And then it's also got, and then you see a speedrunner do it, and you go, okay, right, I'll get my hat. And recently I've been playing that Bellatra game that's just come out, it's a deck builder kind of poker game. It's on like Steam Deck and all that. And that's against a one-person team. And it's taken, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there which obviously has come from deck building card games and things, and then it's kind of really cleverly riffed on top of the knowledge that you have of poker. And the game that you're playing, it's like you watch, I've recommended to a few friends, and they start playing, yeah, I like it. So when they go, what kind of scores do you get on a hand? And I'm going, well, you get like several million. You what? It's like, because the game, you learn how to play the game. And again, but just, it's amazing now how the tools allow individuals you can now make something, and it might take a long time to do it, but and the love, like Stardew Valley, that's like every part of that game was made by one person, and it was a long struggle for them, and a passion project, and a kind of almost like a fan letter to that kind of farming game, which the people who were making them had kind of almost forgotten how to make. And this was like somebody saying, well, this is what, as a fan, what I would make, and then suddenly it's just, incredibly successful. So, yeah.
Right on. Next question. One of you two, whichever one.
So I have to know, the Donkey Kong 64 with Donkey Kong holding a real shotgun. I need to know the story behind it.
So I don't think I know that, but I would imagine it because Nintendo didn't like it. I wouldn't think they had to change it. I'm sure they would think it was too violent to take it out and change it for the coconut gun that fires in spurts. So I think I think that would probably be the reason. But I don't know, but I'm sure that's what it was. Right. I think firing in spurts is worse.
Have you found any new challenges developing games nowadays that didn't exist back in the day?
I don't know. I feel like I feel like you've got to. It's hard to keep doing it, right? Because you try as a composer. I try to get better. I'm sure me and David are the same. We try to get better at what we do. I get to do better orchestration, get more fancy and flashy, and trying to sound like Harry Potter. And but ironically, I feel like when you have a profile on Spotify, you can claim your artist profile, so you can see what people are playing of your music, right? All the things that I think are really fantastically orchestrated and really amazing, and no one's played and listened to those. But all the stuff that I think is not relevant, that's top of the charts, right? So I think that as a composer, you might spend lots of time trying to get better at what you do, but realistically, they're just like to write. People just like simple tunes that you wrote 20 years ago. And you need to not forget how to do that.
DK rap.
Yeah, obviously DK rap, unfortunately. So I do think that sometimes you can get lost in the minutiae and try to be better technically, but is it actually better musically? And I think I have to keep reminding myself that it probably isn't. It probably impresses other composers, but nobody else, which is a waste of time. So.
I think the biggest challenge is if somebody's, like with Tropical Freeze, we needed it to sound like the original, but if you made it sound like the original, it would sound completely disappointing. And it takes an awful lot of processing power and plugins and a lot of things that you have to do extra to make it sound as people think they hear it, because we will have rose-tinted spectacles when we either look at artwork or we hear tunes. We hear things. We remember them far better than they actually were. So to do something now that sounds like it just takes a whole lot more processing, and it's a different thought process. So that's a real challenge, I think.
Yeah, and also we used to create our own little sample sets, right? So we'd have our own little MIDI orchestra on the cartridge that the MIDI files played, right? So you had a limited sound set, and that was it. There was no more. Like now, when you think, I can do with the bass sound. You got like 8,000 bass sounds on a synth to go through. You just go, which one do I choose? They all sound fantastic. Because back in the day, we had no choice, did we? It was like, You've got one bass set, you have to use it for everything, that's it. So in the way, it was like, and I really feel like people from our day, which is a long time ago, know how to write a good tune. I feel sometimes these days you can put your finger on a synth and you just get this great, huge swathe of sound that sounds amazing. And you can make things sound fantastic, but unremarkable. So lots of times I go see movies these days, there'll be this great, epic, fantastically sounding, amazing score, but it's completely unremarkable. I walk out of the theatre, I can't remember a note of it. Right. And I think when we were back, we were always told by Tim and Chris, you need to write a tune that people can remember and don't get sick of it after hearing it 8 billion times, right? So
part of that though was because the technology that we had was so limited, we had to listen to things over and over again.
Yeah.
And so if we got bored with it, we'd soon change it. So that was probably a good way of working. And I think it's probably a thing that a lot of composers might want to adopt today, that they listen to their own music over and over and over again. We had no choice to do that. No. We had to listen to it, and because of that, you do jettison a lot of ideas quite quickly.
And I mean, Donkey Kong Country. It's interesting. I'll walk in and my kids are watching YouTube, and there's themes in those YouTube videos from Donkey Kong Country. And I just recently found this out. My wife, who's not a gamer at all, and I was telling her, I'm preparing this panel and stuff, and I said, man, these guys, they're the goats, right? I'm going to moderate the goats. And she has a CD that has a Donkey Kong Country theme. She didn't even know that it was from the game.
Right.
And she's like, someone made this for me, and I love this song.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's good to hear. It's pretty wild. Sorry. I just want to throw that in. All right.
Thank you.
I'll let you guys pick. I can't pick more.
Somebody pick.
Somebody you pick.
Pick someone, Dave.
Dave, you pick somebody.
Over here, at the back over there.
For Donkey Kong 64, how did you guys came up with the idea of the DK rap along with the Kongs using fruits as a weapon?
Well, George Andreas, the head guy in that game, right? He decided, like when Dave did the original DKC, he got the da-da-da-da-da-da, and then jumped into the da-da-da-da. Dave kind of modernised the whole. He just created this whole new amazing Donkey Kong thing. So George thought we needed to do it again. So it was the late '90s, right? So like, yeah, we need to do hip hop rap. That'd be great doing that. And I was like, well, you know, I'm not known for my hip hop skills, unfortunately. So yeah, he said, oh no, it's going to be fantastic. So he wrote these lyrics and said, I want it to be like. Was that Jason Nevin's track with Run DMC? It was like, it's called It's Like That, That's the Way It Is. It was quite fast. I said, no, that's rubbish. You want to do it like this? So I'd found this crappy drum beat on the synth that me and Dave both had, the JD 1080 rolling thing. It's that so that's what you want to do. It's a bit like that funky called Medina's going to be great, you know. Yeah. And so I thought, this is hilarious. And he was writing lyrics about, you know, I'd recorded him and Chris Sutherland doing the rap and got the banjo guys in to do the chorus. And I thought, oh, yeah, it's going to be fantastic this year. It's working fantastically well, you know. And of course, when it came out, everyone was like, anybody who was little and young got the joke. But anybody that was like a teenager was like, what's this crap that Kirkhope's writing? He's some kind of hip-hop rapper? Well, that's absolutely dreadful. So, you know, I got a big slagging off that, you know, I'd tried to, and it wasn't my intention to try to write some kind of credible rap track. It's supposed to be a joke. But no one got it apart from the kids, right? So I feel like it's taken 25 years for people to get the joke. So people sort of like it now. But the thing is, like, so bad. It's so bad that it's good thing now. You know, it's the worst rap track in the history of rap tracks in the world, right? I readily admit that. But it's one of those daft things that takes on a new life, doesn't it? So at the time, we all thought it was super cool, but it wasn't so cool at the time for people that write rap music.
The voice is on there too. I think Chris Sutherland's voice just adds another flavour to it.
I know. It's like British people trying to rap just doesn't work. You know, we haven't got that.
As you'll find out tomorrow.
We don't sound very cool like you Americans, you know, so yeah, that was it.
Pick up a boulder with relative ease. Make crucial rocks seem such a breeze. He may move slow, he can't jump high, but this one's one hell of a guy. Come on, Cranky, take it to the fridge.
Yes, I love your working in Tropical Freeze, and I played through it again recently, and I was thinking of the level of Grassland Groove that has those cool African beats and, you know, there's multiple parts. I just kind of wanted to get some of your insights, just the inspiration behind it, the recording, and like especially with the choral work and things like that, just maybe the story behind it.
The story was that they got the level up and working, and it's based in the savannah. And we use this sample CD called Heart of Africa, and it has all of these preset voices on it, and that was the inspiration for it. So I was just trying to find lots of different cool ways of using the voices that were on this CD, and it's all tempo matched, and so by tempo matched it means we had a fixed tempo to work with because the level goes along at a certain tempo, and I was just taking these African vocals and slotting it in and making it all work together. So that was the core, that was the technical side of the inspiration, and the music was built around that, so that's why it works that way.
And that's quite an old CD, isn't it?
It's really old.
Yeah, so it's funny sometimes stuff that we used back in the day that was old now, it can get reused because it's fresh again because people haven't heard it for years.
It comes around again.
It was, we had a stack of CDs, didn't we?
Oh,
we
massive.
had for our library of effects, and I remember Rip Tor's effect on Killer Instinct when he swung over. I was watching Scooby-Doo one morning, and some monster was just like, it's Rip Tor's effect. And we used to, I guess a lot of people use the same sound effects, and we'd modify them and
that's all there was then. That's all there was.
Yeah, it was that or nothing.
Very useful.
Nice question with the beanie, right there.
Okay, this is a question about.
Sorry, someone's come up with my phone. Go away.
It's work.
If only.
Work off it.
The GoldenEye game. I overheard a bit of a rumor, and I didn't look it up yet, but I heard that you guys had a bit of an interesting, love-hate relationship with the character Oddjob, and you guys wrote Oddjob a-hole in the manual somewhere?
The manuals were never done in-house. So that was always, the printed parts of the game were always kind of like done, because everyone who's making the game was so enormously busy getting the game finished that we didn't have time to contribute to things like that. And also, strangely, there was always, so this is turning into an answer about manuals, but there's a thing about manuals which always makes me chuckle when I think about it, is that you'd be there trying to finish the game, trying to get the gold masters done and stuff, and just apps that, again, because of the way things worked, you couldn't touch it once it was done. Someone was going to go and make tens, hundreds of thousands of copies of something, so it better not be broken. And then you get these requests. Oh, they're doing the manual. The manual's got a really long lead time, so can you make sure that all the stuff for the manuals? It's the manual. The manual people, it's not the first one they've done. But the manual and the box art would be done so far in advance of the game. So that, for instance, on GoldenEye, famously on GoldenEye, there's box art, screenshots on the box art, which are things which just weren't in the game. And then you get oh yeah, but there was another version of the KF7. It's like, yeah, that was the version which we didn't use because it was really old, and it was the version that was in the game when the manual was again done, and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't. If there's something in the manual that certainly didn't come from Rare, I would say.
Go ahead. I have a question for Graham. So you did a YouTube video.
Right. Yeah.
I was just wondering, how that came about, and was that your house, and how were your chops at the time? Did you have to get ready for that?
So I've known Jules quite a long time. Me and Danny Barnowski mates, and Jules was a friend of Danny's, and I got to know Jules quite, as a friend, pretty well. And he kept saying to me, "Can we do something?" The girl's like, he's a great guitar player. I'm not. I used to be quite good in the olden days. I'm not so good now. And so he said, "We should do the battle, the Banjo-Kazooie battle." I was like, "God, that's going to be really hard. I'm not going to play that." I said, "No, it'll be fine." So he sent me over the version. He said, "Do you play these parts?" I was like, "Oh, there's lots of sweep picking. I'm crap at sweep picking." All that stuff that I just. So he said, "Look." So a lot of the runs that I did on that thing, I had to do in bits because I was so bad compared to how I used to be. I had to go, so I found it really hard. He said, "Just come back over to," it was my house. He said, "Just come over to your house and film it in the backyard." And so he just came up with his girlfriend. She filmed it, and that was it. So we just put it together like that. So Jules is a great guitar player. He's a good guy. So it was good fun to do it, but it was hard.
The gentleman with the white cap.
I have a question for the composers. As far as the process of making score for music, is it kind of at what point does that start? Is it once the level's done, then you say, "Oh, I have an idea," or is it kind of they come together as they develop?
Do you want to take it first, Graham?
I'll take it first, David.
Okay.
So, I feel like I worked for Blizzard on Shadowlands, right? And they provided me with lots of stuff, videos and level run-throughs and artwork and tons of stuff. And quite honestly, I don't know if Dave's the same, but I'm happy with it. A few sentences. It's an ice level. It's got ice. It's got a castle in it. I know what I'm doing, right? It's ice. It's going to have pizzicato strings. It's going to have a glockenspiel. It's going to have a celeste because they're spiky in my head. Spiky like ice. It's done and dusted, right? That's how I do it. So I don't really need to have a gazillion pieces of information, or I don't have to play the game even. If I'm talking to the creative director of the game and he tells me roughly what it's about, it's this level, it's a forest or whatever it is, I think any composer worth the salt these days has got something predefined before they even touch the keyboard. That's the way I do it. I think that I know a lot of guys who want to play the game and absorb it and feel it. I'm a bit like, I don't want to do that. You just tell me, and that will take time, and they want it quick, right? Always. I want it tomorrow. I want it yesterday. So you want to. Let's have a quick description, paragraph, that's too long. A few sentences, let's talk on the phone about it or do a quick video call. And that's it, and I'll get on with it.
I mean, for me, I like the artwork just because I like artwork. So it's nice to see it. And then as soon as you see the artwork, you instantly get ideas for what you might write or what might work. And the other thing that's really important is because the people who are asking for the tune, they've got a predetermined idea. So the longer you can keep them talking about what they'd like, and you really need to give it over to them to talk about it and what's inspiring them. And I'm quickly scribbling down notes about what they might like. That's really useful because if you put your inspiration forward without listening to what they've got to say about it, it might not be what they were thinking of. So it's a combination of seeing their visual inspiration and what they're thinking behind the scenes.
Yeah, like Dave says, it without waste time. So if you don't listen to what they're saying, like I always say, a lot of times, people who they can't talk about music in a musical fashion that we understand. They don't know the phraseology of it. So we'll always say to them, send an MP3 or send us a movie scene or something that you think is in the right direction. So at least you get a kick in the right direction. The worst kind of guy to work for is a guy that says, I don't know what I want, but I know when I hear it.
Yeah,
and you could be there till next Christmas writing it, you know. And also, I always try to I just send in the first 16 bars, 20 bars, 25, whatever it is, and say, is this, rather than write a whole 5-minute piece and say, I don't like it, do it again, I'll send a little bit, is in the right direction, yes or no, or change it if not, or continue it if they like it. So I think if you do it for a long time like we have, you know, you start to learn your little shortcuts that save you a bit of time because they're going to want it quick, you know.
And there's the odd time as well, instead of doing, I mean, it's really useful to do a short section, but there are some times where you think you've absolutely nailed it, and so you'll do the full track and send it off, and 9 times out of 10 they normally like it. So there's that approach, but there's that 10% of the time when they really don't like it.
Yeah, you've got to pull your hair out.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's happened.
We got time for a couple more. You guys have a preference here?
Who's choosing? This man here in the jacket here, you, sir.
Oh, hi. So, question for Fran.
Oh.
Just just to circle back to Smash Brothers.
Right.
So, what was it like to work with Sakurai, like just on the composition or arrangement for Spiral Mountain? Because when I heard that in the trailer and I found out it was you, I'm like, what? No way.
Right. That was a weird thing. Like, I was still working on. I just finished the first Mario Rabbids game, I think. And David Soliani, who's the creative director, said to me, "Nintendo, I'll try to get hold of you. Can I pass on your email?" I was like, "Of course you can, for God's sake, do it. Why have you done it already?" You know. So, and he sent me just a very vague thing. You know, the very polite, "Dear Mr. Kirkhope, we've got something we'd like you to collaborate on with us." And I was like, "That sounds cool." And I kept thinking, God, could it be Banjo-Kazooie? Nah, it can't be that. It must be something else. And I thought maybe they put the Rabbids in Smash or something like that. And it took a while to get the NDA, to get the NDA signed and all that nonsense. It took about a couple of months. And like, when I finally got the thing and said it's Banjo-Kazooie, I nearly exploded. I was like, what? Jesus Christ! Like, people are going to go crazy when they find out about this. So I had to keep it super quiet, of course. And they just said, they sent out a little kind of PowerPoint brief that they sent all the Smash composers, and sort of said it was like, we'd like to do a little 2-3 second introduction and then go into the main piece, really make it big and elaborate and really go for it, then wind it down towards the end. No, was it? Yes, it was that, and then wind it down in the middle a bit and then build up at the end for the loop, right? So, and they said, pick any piece you like from Banjo-Kazooie, we don't care what it is. And I thought, I said, well, I think Spiral Mountains are going to be right. I just thought it'd be the one to do, right, you know, so. I had the big orchestra bit at the beginning, and it went to the kind of banjo-y bit, loop bluegrass bit in the middle, and loop round to the back. And they said, "Oh yeah, great. Well, we changed our minds. Can you put the kind of bluegrass banjo bit at the beginning?" So they completely reverse what they said. And then you can go as crazy as you like at the end with the orchestra bit. And I was like, "Oh, great." So I did that. Like, I must have done about 10 versions, but it was the same piece. I just kept asking for less reverb. That's what they kept, because I was writing that kind of Hollywood-y style thing that I guess where I live it's like that, and they wanted it to be more Nintendo-esque, so they wanted it to be a drier thing. But I've got to say, I felt like when they asked me, I was super flattered because they got all the Smash composers are fantastic, right? And those Japanese versions are brilliant, and they don't need me to do anything. I felt very flattered that they asked me. But then after I'd done it, and they said, "Look, we really like it. We're going to use it for the trailer." I was like, "Oh, geez, I couldn't believe it." I was so flattered that they wanted to do that, you know. And I said, "I'm going to do a little video on Twitter to say, oh, look, can you let us?" I had to record the video, send it to them, say what I was going to say, and they said, "Oh, we're going to be okay." They said, "But you can't post about it on Twitter until it's been officially announced on the Smash website." So it was like 9 a.m. for me, I think, or something like that when they announced it, and it didn't go live on the Smash website till 11. So I was sat there going, you know, my Twitter was going, is it you, like this. I just had to sit there and wait until I got the call. Yes, you can. I had to go, it's me, you know. So I didn't talk to Mr. Sakurai directly because his English isn't very good. But there's a Scottish guy in Nintendo Kyoto called Paul Logue. And so I went through him and went back and forth between them. But it was a very easy process. And they didn't pay me that well, unfortunately. They're quite cheap, unfortunately. So that was the only drawback. It was, you know, that's one of those moments, and like, I'm sure James was saying, you get the odd moment in your career and you go, I'm never going to forget that moment. When that got announced, and everybody was crying, and it was just like one of those, like the Nintendo store in New York. We'd launched Mario Rabbids there, so I knew exactly what it was like, you know, and like everybody's going crazy there. Like it was one of the all-time things of my career so far. So.
I haven't asked anybody, have I?
I was going to say, the gentleman.
The person closest here. Yes.
Hi, for Mr. Kirkhope.
Oh.
From my understanding, when you were working on Banjo-Kazooie, you were also working on Perfect Dark and Donkey Kong 64 at the same time?
Yeah.
how was the process to work with 3 games at the same time without going crazy?
Hard. That's what that was. I only got that thing because Dave was mega busy what he was doing, right? He was up against it. And so Graham Norgate had left the company to go with Dave to do Free Radical. So I got given Perfect Dark. And then Ethan Fisher, who was doing Donkey Kong music, got moved to sound effects. And then because I worked with George Andreas on banjos, I wanted Grant to do the music for the GC64. And everybody else was mega busy. It's like, well, so I got 3 games at once, right? So the only way I can describe it was I always thought DK64 was darker than Banjo because I thought Dave's scores for the DKC games were that lovely dark quality to them. I thought they were slightly darker than a normal, like you were talking about before, the ambient thing. It was a different kind of sound for the DK. That's why Dave's scores were so successful, right? So, and I was just trying to get a darker sound like Dave had. So I felt like I could separate it in my head by going, Banjo-Tooie's oddball, goofy, DK64's a bit dark, and then Perfect Dark's like sort of sci-fi. I was into the X-Files at the time, so I was trying to make it sound like that. So I could separate it in my head like that. So I just do 1 track for Banjo-Tooie, 1 track for DK64, 1 track for Perfect Dark, and then go around and start again. And that's how I did it. And I felt like, you know, because the Dave scores had that really great quality to them, that it helped me separate it out from the rest of the stuff. So that's how I saw it in my head.
I'm being a little selfish and take the last question. Okay, Kevin, cool. Were there any character designs that you wish would have made it into the Killer Instinct franchise? Was there a certain character
that I put together on paper that didn't actually become any?
Right.
Again, it's tigers. I put tigers in games and they never go in. I did originally, I think, Saber Wolf. I started building the first exercise. I had this massive thing about cats, and I had a little kitten, and I thought, oh, cats are great. I want to build one. So I built this big cat like Lion-O from He-Man. Did you have that He-Man here? Didn't you? And the Thundercats thing that was just so cool. But Battle Cat from Cringer from He-Man. And I built this big cat, but it didn't look great because the software at the time it didn't allow for organic things. They didn't really look great. You needed all of these special collections of data to move around a joint, and it was really slow. So I'd put a ball joint everywhere to make things move, and this cat was just looked like a big wooden toy. And then I started building a wolf anyway, and because I thought I could disguise it with some clothing and this and that and the other, and I could sculpt plenty of hair on. And then I ended up using the cat head for Jago's temple, which is why Jago's temple looked rubbish, because I wasn't very good at backgrounds. I just stuck stuff on there, and it was used for Orchid's special move. But I would have liked that cat to have been a character, as maybe more of a biped character, because it was quite low down and different to the others. It was kind of like it was the Blanca character. That's what it was going to be. But yeah, that one I think. And Timber, it would have been nice if Timber would have been in there as well.
Yeah. Timber the Killer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. Thank you guys so much for the contribution, for everything you have done for the video gaming industry. It is an honor to even be in this room with you guys. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming all the way to Albuquerque for us. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you for playing them.
Also, we are downstairs in the main hall with autographs and stuff. You're going to see us. We're all down there, right? So see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. For the last 3 nights at Game On Expo, everyone parties. But we have shut this place down. No one's here. It is...
It's empty. It's empty.
There's no one here. We've just been talking. Had a great talk. Thank you so much for hanging out and let me pick your brain, and we talked about a lot of things. I appreciate it. I was on my way to bed, actually. I was on my way to bed an hour ago or something like that. And we just got into it, and that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. I'll have this video to remember.
Well, thank you. It was a good night.
Yes.